Welcome back and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. I am Kenneth Shark Kinney, your host and Chief Shark Officer. Let me tell you about an amazing sponsor who helps make this show possible. I hope that you'll take a look at Drips, the founders of conversational texting, where they use conversational AI to help you reach customers where they're most responsive, and that's on their phones. And working with major brands like 3-Day Blinds, Liberty Mutual, Credit Repair, and Gainsco, Drips is leading the way for some of the biggest brands in the world to improve engagement rates and outcomes for their prospects and customers. And now back to the show. What are you doing so that your product or service doesn't get ignored? Do you differentiate, attract, and direct? A lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses believe they are unique in the marketplace, but they often do exactly what their competitors do, and that's reflected in how they position themselves, and much of that gets ignored in a sea of vanilla. They look the same. So how do they get different? Glad to welcome back to the show Mike Michalowicz, who was earlier on episode 223. And he's the entrepreneur behind several multimillion-dollar companies, an entrepreneurial advocate, a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal, and the author of several books, including Profit First, Clockwork, Fix This Next, and his newest, Get Different, Marketing That Can't Be Ignored. And on this episode, we'll discuss entrepreneurs and small businesses, so-called best practices, being better than the competition and the responsibility to market, being different in the attractor factor, the learn more button, don't do vanilla, the dad marketing framework and some dad jokes, ass-kicking geeks, squirrels in the disadvantage advantage, the chairman and the boss, Angel Soft, the patron saint of marketing, swimming in Camden, two fellows that appreciate Cracker Barrel, and a lot more. So let's tune into Michalowicz the Marketer with a different kind of shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Well, Mike, welcome back to A Shark's Perspective. Thank you so much for joining us again. If you would give us a brief overview, if they haven't had a chance to listen to you on episode 223, give us a quick review of who you are and what you do.
Sure. It's a pleasure to be back with you, Kenneth. I'm Mike. I'm an author for small business topics. I've been doing this now for 15 years. I'm an entrepreneur. I still am a shareholder in small businesses. I've a couple. And I've fallen in love with the understanding what makes entrepreneurship successful. And it's often not what I was doing or what many people are doing. Usually it seems that often the reality of successful entrepreneurship is the polar opposite of what we're doing. So I wrote books like Profit First, where we're told profit is the bottom line, and in fact crushes us by doing that. It should be the first thing that we address. I wrote Clockwork, which is about actually removing the owner from the business for an extended period of time, not because the owner needs to be removed, but the business needs the owner removed. And different books like that. And my most recent books, Get Different. It's a different approach. It's the essence of what makes marketing effective, but ironically, it's different than what most people do because most marketing is not effective. So I dispel the mistakes and hopefully provide a solution that will serve people in marketing their businesses.
Well, I knew you were writing for Wall Street Journal in the past, and I've had this conversation with other people. I've been in the consulting space for a lot of years. And when I got out of it, I noticed how much of the consulting babble lived on in my brain. And when I was working with companies, and this is why I like seeing people like you, like John Jantz, a lot of the people they're working a lot with small businesses and entrepreneurs, is we have to caution ourselves not to regurgitate a lot of the marketing speak that's out there. And I'm curious if you ever fell into that trap, especially when you were writing for the journal, because to your point, a lot of what they should be doing is not what we often hear.
Yeah, it's very common. And I fell into the trap, and I fall into the trap of taking best practices, particularly when it comes to marketing, and then replicating them. And they often fail, almost assuredly fail. And the reason is this, is the human mind is designed to ignore almost everything. Like that's its primary function, is to ignore things unless they have significance, threats, opportunities, and different. Everything else gets ignored. Otherwise, there'd be constant stimulus and we couldn't survive. We'd be staring at a pen for hours and say, why is this pen blue? And who invented the word blue? And just go on and on. So ignore until it's relevant. Well, different, and we've experienced this in life. When you're walking down the street and you do that double take, you're like, what? That means your mind, your senses sense something. Your mind opened up and said, I don't recognize this. I must evaluate it, because our mind is evaluating, is this a new threat or a new opportunity, or can it be discarded in the future? So we're constantly in that mode. in our marketing, the mistake I see business owners do is they say, well, I'm just going to take the best practice of what my competitor is doing. But if your prospect already has received that message and they say it's irrelevant to them, the next time they get the message, their mind already says, oh, this is of no relevance, and it gets ignored. That's why next time you go through junk mail, it's true for everyone. Just notice how quickly you roll through it. It's like recycle, recycle, recycle. Oh, there's a check, opportunity. Recycle, recycle. Oh, there's a check, opportunity. We discard the other stuff so quickly. So if we follow that best practice, it's likely to get not noticed. Another example, maybe a little more of a modern example, would be an email, the Hey Friend emails. I remember the first time I got Hey Friend, it was different. It's called the reticular formation, opens up, lights my brain and says, oh, I do that what take. I'm like, oh, who's this friend that I don't know? That's calling me, they don't even call me by my first name. God bless me. Then I read through, I'm like, oh, this is marketing, irrelevant, non-desirable. The next Hey Friend I got, I barely paid any attention to. And since then, I've categorized that as irrelevant. I don't open them, I don't look at them. They go into the spam box. That's how quickly a best practice is defeated. So what we need to do in our marketing, which is effective, is look what the best practices are. And that's the one thing to avoid. Do something that's different, because you want that prospect. The first step in effective marketing is them going, what the what? Yeah. Doing that double take.
Well, this is a great way to transition into the new book, Get Different Marketing That Can't Be Ignored. Last time we were talking about Fix This Next, as well as your hierarchy of needs and everything else. But what's the problem that you wanted to fix for people with this book specifically? And what was the intended audience? Was it still going to gear towards entrepreneurs?
Entrepreneurs, small business, that's my people. And I'll be a little soapboxy here. I think it happened about 7 or 8 years ago. I started asking a question I've asked now consistently to audiences when I'm speaking live or now, in virtual through the chat box. And what I ask is, are you better than the competition? And I would say almost everyone affirmatively and correctly says, I am. And the reason they're better is they're small business owners. So chances are that owner is integrated in the business. They give better service, or they respond faster. They simply care more for their customers. There are specific aspects that make them better than the alternatives. And then my argument is, well, if we're better than the competition, don't we have a responsibility to market? Because if we don't, if we're invisible, the client is still going to buy something somewhere, but if they can't find us, now they're buying something that we've defined as inferior to our option. So marketing is a responsibility. Marketing is the ultimate act of kindness. So I wrote this book for small businesses it starts off with a rallying cry. We need to step up and market. It's the only way to be of service. And we have to make sure we do it right. Basically, what I suggest to small businesses is the world is starving to discover you. You must be discoverable. And then the book outlines how to be discoverable.
That's a great point. It's a great segue into the first chapter. What is your responsibility to market? And I love the 3 main questions the book poses. Does it differentiate? Does it attract? And does it direct? Yeah. So let's dive in a little bit further. What is the dad marketing framework?
So, and it's funny, Kenneth, I've heard like every dad joke as a result of using that as the acronym. And I will tell you the best joke. This is the best dad joke ever. So I'll use it right now. It goes, when does a good joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the epitome. That's the epitome of a dad joke. So that's the best one. The framework is basically a checklist. We need to assure that all 3 of these elements are in place to give our marketing the best opportunity to succeed. And if we miss even one element, it is so crippled, it will be unnoticeable or ineffective. So the 3 stages or the 3 elements are as follows. D stands for differentiate. What I mean here is don't do what everyone else is doing. The way to get noticed is to get people to do that double take. There has to be a disruption to the pattern, to the white noise. And there's many ways to do it. And I explain in the book some strategies to do it, but first have to be different. The A stands for attract. So not different for different sake is not adequate. This book is not about being outrageous to dress in your Bozo the Clown costume and walk around with a waka waka horn. That will get noticed because it's different. But does it compel, does it attract the audience you want to speak to? And in fact, many businesses that try to do this outrageous marketing, it's offensive and actually turns away the audience. So we need to stand out and get noticed, but in a way that to the audience that we're trying to serve, they say, oh, that's for me, or this is interesting, or I'm curious about this. There has to be a reason for them to stay. That's the attractor factor. And the last element is direct. This is where we give them a specific and reasonable, that's the key variable there, action to take now they have this information. Sadly, many marketing campaigns end with this great kind of balloon deflating, goes like nothing comes out of it. What we need to do is tell the customer what to do next. It's the call to action. But the key here about this is it needs to be reasonable. Now you have the customer engaged or the prospect engaged. What do you want them to do that's a transaction of sorts, but they feel safe doing? If you were buying a car and you walk into my lot and I say, hey, give me $100,000, we're going to find your dream car. That's so absurd. It's so big, you would never do it. It's probably more reasonable for me to say, give me your cell number and I'll text you pictures of cars in our inventory so you can find your dream car. That's a transaction, permission to market to you, permission to share information. And some businesses go too obtuse, like the learn more button. You go to a website and it says, thanks for coming to our website, learn more, click here. The whole reason we went to the website was to learn more. It's this circuitous pattern. So a direct is a specific and reasonable action that matriculates or moves us toward that final transaction we want to have efficiently.
So I want to read you a quick passage I loved in this. It says, different is just a series of steps. This is within that chapter. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. You're up against a powerful force that could take you down before you finish the next chapter. The force is the pull forward sameness. You're human, so that means you're more comfortable doing what you've already done, what other people in your industry already do. And I love that part of that chapter, but it really kind of crystallizes the groupthink of best practices as well, and how everybody aggregates to the same vanilla junk stuff that everybody else is doing. And then it gets, no wonder.
Don't do vanilla, do vanilla ice.
Yes.
Don't do
and
vanilla.
Then don't hire a new agency to do another take on your same vanilla. It happens over and over and over.
It's the death spiral, the downward death spiral. And it's frustrating. And so what we do is we're enamored by the next big thing, which the danger is the next big thing has probably already become habituated, meaning it's already out in the market and people are already expecting it. So when you hear of like, oh, everyone's running Facebook ads, I got to do Facebook ads. It fizzles fast because everyone's already consuming those ads. The effectiveness was great in the beginning because it was different then, but it's become saturated. So I'm thinking of social media right now, but Clubhouse was the hot thing. How's that serving you now? Is it the hot thing? So what we need to do is take a real hearty look at our audience and then determine what no one is doing to market to them. And then do that. We can take ideas from outside our industry and so forth. But there is this devil angel situation going on. We become our biggest impedance because standing out means you may be bothersome to someone. You may be embarrassed yourself. Maybe you'll be rejected. And my God, do we hate rejection? So this angel on the shoulder is saying, it's the ultimate act of kindness. The world must discover you because you are better. And then the devil is saying, you're going to be bothersome. You're going to embarrass yourself. You're scum. So we want to be noticed without being noticeable. We want to stand out without standing out. We want to be different without having to differentiate. And that just doesn't work. So the way over this is, first of all, really lean into the angel and realize that the only way you can care for others is if they notice that you even exist. The second thing is to do experiments. The whole book is around experiments as opposed to plans. Most people say, I'm going to have a marketing plan. Well, plan means commitment. Experiment means you don't know if it's going to work or not. You give yourself the leeway to try things out. If it fails, it's a learning experience that you can garner information from and learn from. And experiments also mean a small level. I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars on a Facebook campaign. What can I do for a few $100s just to sample something in a way I've never done it before? Maybe sending out postcards when I've never done that before, or some other kind of marketing. So start small, start slow, and let it grow. But we do need to start. We got to lean into that angel and start doing stuff that others aren't doing. When we build that muscle, when it starts being effective, you are being of service to your clients and you'll have confidence to do more of it.
Yeah. Let's talk then about attracting for engagement. Tell us the story a little bit about how a bunch of geeks beat up you and your team at Olmec.
Yeah. So I have a keynote coming up in January, and my opening line, I think, is going to be something to the fact that I got my ass kicked by a bunch of geeks. And I actually think maybe it's not ass kicked, maybe it's destroyed. I had a business doing computer systems. and installing computer systems. I was a computer guy. I had the generic uniform that all computer guys wore, which was an oversized sports coat that really didn't fit me, with the shoulder pads out a mile. I looked like a human scarecrow, admittedly. And I was duking it out with my competition based upon the quality of my services. I had all the certifications to prove I was better. I had the experience to prove I was better. I had the testimonials to prove I was better. And I would go for a prospect, and so would they. We have to do our RFQs and bidding it out and so forth, and try to get a small project and go again. And then one day, this company, Geek Squad, came in and just obliterated everybody. And they weren't better, meaning they didn't have more certifications. They weren't better, as I defined it, by having more experience, but they were different. They were willing to wear flood pants, a narrow necktie, and glasses with some tape on it. They did a form of performance marketing, just the way they presented themselves. And they instantly became noticeable. The customer did the what? Who's the geek? And who doesn't want a geek fixing their computer? Fast forward today, Best Buy acquired Geek Squad. The combined valuation's over $1 billion. I saw an interview with Robert Stevens, the founder of Geek Squad, and he shared something really insightful. He said, the more ordinary an industry, the greater the opportunity there is to stand out. The more boring things are, the more people follow the same protocol, is actually easier to stand out if we're willing to do different. Now, here's the other ironic or an interesting thing. Geek Squad proved if you're simply willing to wear a costume, you will win business left and right. And it wasn't even like this, it wasn't like a Halloween costume. It was just a few changes. No one has replicated that. I've yet to see another computer industry, it's been 20 years, replicate that. Different is scary for people because the devil says that's embarrassing, you're bothersome, you'll get rejected. But the angel proves when you're willing to do that, like Geek Squad does, you can get $1 billion valuation.
Well, it almost seemed authentic because you were able to conceive these people wearing those exact clothes. And totally. I love the point in the book where you talk about all the certifications again, because the customer, they don't care. No. They want to get their problem fixed. And most businesses are going, wait, I've got a gazillion 5-star reviews and all this other stuff. I think it's such a brilliant point. So how should marketers be thinking about designing a directive for results and how we're going to go about measuring how this change will affect our results?
Yeah. So we want to start with the end in mind. What's the final transaction we're trying to get to? I call it the who, what, and when, not when, but win, like a victory. Who, what, and when. Who is, the avatar we're trying to sell to. The what is what are we providing to them that's significant. And the win is what's the outcome that we want. And it's not just the outcome for the customer's gain, but for our gain. This is a transaction. So once you define that, then we have to look at the steps that get us there. Marketing is designed to facilitate a transaction, not necessarily directly, but we need to get to that transaction as efficiently as possible. So back to that car example, you may be driving down the road and I have that balloon boy thing, that balloon that kind of flaps around.
Yeah.
Maybe that garners your attention, which ironically is less and less effective. That was different at some point. Perhaps the first time, Kenneth, you saw it, you're like, oh my gosh, wait, what is that thing? Like I did. But now you see them all the time. Saturation kicks in, habituation. It's actually the most ignorable thing. We're like, oh, another used car lot, and go blowing by. But let's just say, in this case, it got your attention enough, and you said, I need a used car, new car. Let me pull into the lot. When you do, then, so it differentiated by kind of standing out in the noise around us. It pulled you in. Now I'm the car salesperson. I need to give you a direct that's reasonable. Now, the final transaction is I want you to purchase the car, but it's unlikely I would say, hey, buy the car right now, give me the money and we're going to find it. What I need to do is build that trust. And the trust is through a series of transactions. Would you be willing to give me your cell number? I'll send you inventory. Do you want to walk the lot with me? We'll walk around. Can you give me some information what you're looking for? I'll see if I can find it. Those are all forms of building trust and honing in on it. My job is to move you. It's kind of like a Goldilocks situation here, quickly enough to get you to that transaction where it's efficient, but also where you feel comfortable in the process throughout. Now, the final transaction is a big component. Like, buying a car could be a tens of thousands of dollars investment. Buying a book, like I sell a book, you can get them on Amazon sometimes for like $15. So for me, sometimes I can go right to that direct saying, pleasure to meet you. This is the book that I think will serve you. Are you willing to buy the book? It's a small risk. It's $15. It's as opposed to a 15 or 20 or 30,000 or more dollar car where there needs to be some more steps before the final transaction.
Last question before we get to my fun questions again is talk about squirrels and the disadvantage advantage. So you can tell I've given you some good references. I read this book.
I love it. That's a good one. So I think squirrels get a bad name out there. At least for the longest time, they're frustrating me. I pull down the road and all of a sudden there's a squirrel in front of your car. You got to jump on the brakes and stuff. And the squirrel kind of laughs as it runs away. Squirrels are notorious, particularly this time of the year in the East Coast. All the acorns are down. The squirrels are out collecting them and then burying the acorns everywhere. And research shows that I think it's upwards of 80% of the acorns they bury, they forgot where they put them. So it's not an efficient storage mechanism, which you would think is a great disadvantage. But the reality is actually they are finding enough that they've stored away to sustain, and they are planting trees. Maybe they don't even realize they are, but they're planting trees, which is their habitat. So it actually brings about more sustainability for them by doing that behavior. So what we think is a disadvantage is actually an advantage. Well, when we look at our business, we may feel we have certain disadvantages. The question is, how do you flip that and make it your advantage? That's a great way to be different. With my own business, my last name as an author, Michalowicz, is probably one of the most horrific last names you can have. So what I could do is shorten my name or come up with a pen name or something like that, which most authors actually do. Like you've seen this in music. John Mellencamp went to John Cougar because no one could say Mellencamp. And then finally he owned his own name again. Well, with me, I said, okay, that's a disadvantage, hard to pronounce, almost impossible to spell. So on my website, I made fun of my own last name. It's become one of the most engaging parts of my website. You go on there and you can start playing with my name and all these different bastardizations. Well, it brings about a realness and approachability. So now when I'm out speaking or writing books, someone's like, oh, I know that guy, Michalowicz, which is one of the favorite last names that's been assigned to me and a common one when I was growing up. But people feel it's approachable. That weakness, that disadvantage now has become actually one of my stronger advantages. That's the strategy.
Well, Mike, last time you were on the show, we talked about your favorite shark. I will say that Camden, New Jersey, at least you're a New Jersey guy, has a great aquarium. It's about the only thing I know of in Camden that's great, but
yeah, I've never been to the Camden Aquarium, nor
you can
Camden.
even swim with sharks there. It's one of the few aquariums in the U.S. where you can swim with sharks. But
that's cool.
It's that special time in the show again. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions you're going to be asked today?
Yeah, in my life. Lay them on.
So you're a New Jersey guy. We're going to go with best singers of New Jersey. Frank Sinatra or Bruce Springsteen?
Well, Bruce, just because I was raised on Bruce. I did visit Hoboken where Frank was. And Frank supposedly said, I'll never return to the city. Now, I don't know the context around that, but I'm like, you're rejecting New Jersey. So I'm all Bruce.
All right. Number 2, you wrote The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. So the obvious question is Charmin or Angel Soft?
Angel Soft. And we use a different term for it, which is not politically appropriate. But
I'm glad I didn't ask you a bidet question then.
My wife texted me. She's like, are you picking up some Angel Soft? Literally yesterday. She's like, can you pick up some Angel Soft? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah. So I don't know. She's the lover and she determines what we use. So it's Angel Soft.
No problem. All right. Number 3, you wrote The Pumpkin Plan.
Right.
So pumpkin spice latte or any other flavor of latte?
Pumpkin spice. I actually really like it. And it's so funny because it's so popular. Those drinks with pumpkin spice that people kind of bastardize and make fun of it. I think it tastes really good. Pumpkin spice.
Waiting for like a pumpkin spice toilet paper. I mean, there'll be.
Yeah. I've never eaten my toilet paper that I remember.
No. Well, number 4. All right. You mentioned patron saint, so I wanted to bring this one up. I've been waiting for the right opportunity. St. Jude or St. Bernardine of Siena?
St. Jude. Yeah, and patron saint, that was from Simon Sinek.
Simon Sinek, yeah. Well, St. Jude, greatest children's hospital in the world.
Yeah.
Here in Memphis. St. Bernardine, though, is considered the patron saint of marketing, PR, and speaking, oddly enough.
Oh, I didn't know that. But St. Jude comes immediately. You think of having impact on the next generation. Like that place does amazing things.
Many generations. All right. Number 5. Last time we talked about this, biscuits or cornbread, you brought up Cracker Barrel which I agree
Apple
with.
butter on their biscuits.
Oh my
My
God.
God.
Yeah. And they give you both biscuits and cornbread. But today's question, most important question is fried catfish or fried chicken?
Oh, wow. So
Delightfully good at Cracker Barrel
if
too.
I'm at Cracker Barrel, I'm going with the catfish. That's actually my favorite meal. Is I don't do the fried, I just do the catfish broiled. So I say fried catfish at Cracker Barrel.
Okay.
But at my house, hands down, it's the fried chicken. KFC. We're a bit of a KFC family.
No problem. All right. Well, Mike, where can people get a copy of this book? Get Different, marketing that can't be ignored. Keep up with what you're doing. See you on the speaking trail and more.
Yeah. The best place to go is gogetdifferent.com. So gogetdifferent.com. The book is available there, free chapter downloads. I think the coolest thing is there's a resource with dozens and dozens of strategies of how to market differently right out of the get-go that costs nothing. You can get started immediately, even before you read the book. That's all available at gogetdifferent.com.
Awesome. Mike, thank you again for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
Thank you, Kenneth.
So there was my conversation with Mike Michalowicz, the entrepreneur behind several multi-million-dollar companies, an entrepreneurial advocate, a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal, and the author of several books, including Profit First, Clockwork, Fix This Next, and his newest, Get Different, Marketing That Can't Be Ignored. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from my conversation with him. First, best practices almost assuredly fail. Mike and I were discussing what is often defined as best practices in air quotes. We get conditioned to do what people, always in groupthink, define as a best practice, and it's often only what your competitor is doing. So obviously, that's a best practice. Ignore that mindset, please. Do what stands out, not only what blends in. Keep testing, keep experimenting. See what works for your customers and your business, not just theirs. Second, if you're a business owner, then you likely believe that you've got a unique factor to the market, but you often go vanilla. So many fall into that trap. And then to fix it, you hire agency after agency to change that vanilla packaging. And as he said, when you want to be different without differentiating, then you fail. He goes on to smartly describe committing to that different. You've got to build that muscle in order to be different, to be a better service to your clients and customers, in order to do more. Don't do vanilla, for me, unless it's a latte, and even then, go caramel. Third, great story about Robert Stevens, the founder of Geek Squad. Mike cites a saying from Mr. Stevens when he said, "The more ordinary an industry, the greater the opportunity there is to stand out." Best Buy's Geek Squad is the perfect example here of standing out. They weren't better at hanging your TV or fixing your laptop, as Mike says. They were different. Different can be as simple in this case as a costume. And it's easier to stand out if you're willing to be different. Different is hard for a lot of people to attempt, because it's hard for them to think about getting themselves differentiated. Oftentimes they're scared. So ask yourself, what is your different? Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time, and I am so thankful to everyone who listens to this show. Thank you to my sponsor and the amazing team at Drips. Please consider writing a review and letting me know your thoughts on the show. Reach out. Today is the day to be different. I'm going to go be different now and do what others are afraid to do. I'm a shark. Please join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.